Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with another episode of Matt Chat, brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. Joined by the new head coach of Princeton. I don't know if we've been friends. I was wondering, are we brothers from another mother? Are we not quite there yet? It's been a while.
Yeah, we've been at this thing for a long time, so it's pretty close.
My good friend, yeah, we're cousins. My good friend Joe Dubuque. First of all, Joe, congratulations, man.
David, thank you very much, man. Always a pleasure to come on and talk to you about what's new in my life and just be able to sit down and chat with you. So I appreciate you having me on.
I was telling somebody the other day, this podcast started because of the fact that I was friends with assistant coaches, because I was an assistant coach. And we'd have these, they were all above board, but these sort of back channel conversations like, hey, who are you recruiting that may not be a D1 kid? Who's good in junior college? You and me talked about a couple kids in junior college that ended up being good for you that weren't even my guys. Those names can stay nameless, but just, we worked with each other and helped each other out. And it's been great how many of the guys that were on the podcast became head coaches, like Sean, Tony Roby, yourself. I think there's more than that, but just it's interesting to watch the path. So I'm going to kind of go big picture first. There's 70 some odd jobs of these, and they're not all equal. There's like probably 30 really good ones, and you got one of them. Like, how does that make you feel, man?
It makes me feel awesome. And it really is amazing that I'm able to work at, the number one university in the country. That's also in my home state, where I grew up and where I was born. And that's special to me. So, just going through, being the associate head coach with Chris, we talked about a lot of things of like, hey, what jobs would you put in for? And, what jobs would you want to take over? And I told him there's only a few, and this was definitely one of them. So for me to be able to have this opportunity to continue to lead this program is really it's something that's surreal, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, so we're on the outside, right, looking in, and certain people give us certain information, and I'm not like some guys where you and I have talked about this. Like, I've never felt the need to break stuff first. I feel like you break stuff first and people stop talking to you, because like there's a lot of private conversations. I'd rather be the guy that I'm actually friends with people than the guy that people think has to know first. And nothing against those other people. It's just not my cup of tea. But basically, the chain for people that don't follow this was Esposito leaves Oklahoma State, goes to USA Wrestling, the airwaves we're on, for the developmental coach job. Coleman Scott comes to Esposito's position, leaves the head coaching job at North Carolina. Rob Cole leaves Stanford and goes to Coleman Scott's job at North Carolina. Stanford job is now open. Chris Ayers goes there. And then Joe Dubuque takes over Chris Ayers' job. I think that's just important because it's like, and I'm old, it's like that 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon thing, right? Like, you're now somehow connected to Zach Esposito getting the job as the USA developmental coach. And the world works in mysterious ways. And I think everybody who's been successful at everything understands you just kind of, sometimes you just work hard and you don't get rewarded. And there's other times you're not doing anything, you're not working any especially harder and you get rewarded. And I know you're always grinding, but this thing happened. A bunch of things happened that were out of your control and I'll use this word, to bless you with something that was in your control now. I mean, do you ever think about just the randomness of all that and how all this stuff led to us talking about this now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah. How it made its way back to me. Yeah, that was a pretty random turn of events. I will say, I'm very good friends with Espo, So
Jersey guys,
when
right?
yeah, so we went to the same club, and he's a year younger than me, but we're kind of like the same age. We were both national champs the same time. So we've gone back a long time, and we were just again we spend a lot of time texting, and whenever we're out recruiting, we like to go out and grab a bite to eat. And so he kind of brought up this position and this opportunity, and again, I think he was just kind of looking. I think him and Ayers were very similar. Kind of just looking for a little bit of a change. They've been at one place for so long, and it's like maybe I try something else. And when he got it, I was so excited for him. Me and Ayers called him. And congratulated him, and he was pretty pumped up about it. And for that to make its way all the way back to me, so when I got the job, I actually just texted him, "Thank you."
Yeah.
and
Thanks
I
for
was
getting
like,
the itch. Yeah.
if you never took that job, who knows? I'd be still an associate head coach.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, just things happen for a reason, but I truly believe that because of all the things I've sacrificed throughout the years, and the way I was grinding and the way I was working, I knew that was gonna create an opportunity for me, whether it was at Princeton or whether it was somewhere else. I knew what I was doing was the right things, and that sooner or later I was going to have my opportunity. And again, like you said, to be blessed to have this is like an understatement, because my kids get to stay in their school district. I get to stay within an hour of my parents, and people who I've grown up with, best friends of mine, who are not in the wrestling world, who are just guys who I went to school with. I'm still able to see them on, weekends and see their family. So yeah, a lot of things kind of, broke my way, but I also feel like I made my own luck also. And, again, truly blessed, not to use that too much, but I
No.
really am. And I'm thankful.
Yeah, I don't think you're lucky. And when things fall in people's, when on the outside it looks like something fell in somebody's lap. It's like that duck that's just kicking like crazy going across the water, and they don't know how hard you're kicking. I will share one thing that you've told me over the years. You told it to me in confidence, but I feel 100% sure you'd be comfortable. I talk to a lot of coaching staffs, and there's certain coaching staffs where people don't like each other, people tolerate each other, people genuinely like each other, and people love and respect the hell out of each other. And you and Chris Ayers fell in that last category. And, you would tell me, because I would ask you, like, what's it like working for Ayers? Because I just know Ayers from basically Michigan Border Brawl when his daughter was in the event. And, you guys were there for that. And Colo wrestled in it. But really, my connection to Chris was you. Like, if you're like, hey, take this guy's call, he's a good dude, then, it makes it a lot easier. But the completely off-air conversations we've had about him, and your genuine respect for him as a person, first of all, and we'll get into some of the other stuff, but it's got to, I mean, you're obviously a grown man, but he's a mentor to you, right?
1000%. When I went to Princeton, I knew him a little bit, but didn't know him, very well. And kind of, again, went to Princeton because I was fully bought in on this dude's vision and his passion for wanting to be great and wanting to turn something around like this. And then it went from, him being my boss to really him being my friend. And I really truly look at him as one of my better friends, that I can talk to about anything. And he is one of the best mentors I've ever had. And I really truly believe I wouldn't have had this opportunity if it wasn't for him, because even you know even being here, without his mentorship, I wouldn't be in this position, and I wouldn't be the coach I am today. He really has helped me, grow in that area. And there's so many things that, I am going to take that he, taught me and showed me. Obviously, I want to definitely put my own spin on this thing, and have a little bit of Joey D flavor on it. But
little hot sauce, little Joey D hot sauce.
Yeah. Get make it a little spicy. But truly, like, I mean, I respected the hell out of him, and I still do. It's funny. I didn't have the job yet. There was no announcement or anything like that, and I wasn't offered the job yet. And we were at Elite Eight Duels, and he's there, and that's the first time I saw him. Since he got the job, and he's got his Stanford thing on, and I go in there and we're talking, and then I go and walk to another mat, and he looks at me and he goes, "Hey, what mat are you going to?" I go, "I'm not telling you." I was like, "I'm not telling you what mat I'm going to." And he goes, "Come on." He's like, "I'm just starting out this thing." He's like, "Help me out." I was like, "I've been helping you out. I've been helping you out for 10 years, buddy. You're on your own now." So he's, but yeah, man, like, I feel like I'm going to always be able to give him a call and, pick his brain. And obviously I hope he feels the same with me. Again, we had such a close relationship for, again, 10 years that, there wasn't much I wouldn't do for him, and
except give him mad assignments. Besides that,
yeah, except mad assignments. Yeah. Well, now we're enemies. That's it. He's out. But no, seriously, he's an awesome dude. I'm so happy for him and his family. It really was like, couldn't turn it down, man. It was an opportunity. He just couldn't turn down. So I really am happy for him, but I am going to be happy when, we kick their butts and we go out to either, Palo Alto, or they come out to Princeton. I definitely want to get him out here. I think it'll be great, actually, to, I think it will be well received, him coming back to Princeton, just because of everything he's done for the program over the years. So it'll be very cool.
Well, number one, he left the place better than he found it. Number two, he left the place in great hands. And number three, just two amazing academic institutions that are also good at wrestling each other. I mean, that's a great storyline, the kid come home thing. This question is interesting to me because, like, when I hang out with my civilian friends, I'm the best wrestler in the group. And when I hang out with all you guys, I'm the worst wrestler in the group. It can be like Joe Russell actually called me and said, "Hey, there's a guy here that says you were the man back in the day." I said, "I will take that," because I talked to everybody else who could have thumped me, so I'll take that one call. So my question is, wrestling is one of these sports where it feels like if you weren't great at wrestling, people don't give you the same level of, I don't know the right words, respect, credibility. Like, I look at other sports, like, like a Bill Belichick in the NFL, never was a great player. And I look at other words like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, great players, unbelievable players, not great coaches. And you were obviously a great wrestler, multiple-time national champ. Ayers wasn't. And I don't mean that, like, he wasn't as good of a wrestler as you on any metric, okay? And just like I wasn't. It's not an insult. It just is what it is. It's a fact. But, like, when you speak of him, whatever he did as a wrestler versus whatever you did as a wrestler, you can tell is irrelevant in how you speak of him. Because at a certain point, even if you're still wrestling with the guys, that's only a small piece of the job. Like coaching kids, mentoring kids, mindset, fundraising, community relations, all these other things. Do you think wrestling has it right that you have to have been this great wrestler, or do you think you just have to have been good enough and the rest is just learning it like anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a certain point where that switches, right? Where I think if you're a young assistant, I think you have to be pretty good, just because, again, like, your main job is to work out with the guys, right? And if you're getting thumped by your guys and you're right out of college, then it's gonna be hard for those guys to really buy in, and trust you. They almost kind of need you to kind of put it on them, and then they're like, "Oh,
sure.
yeah,
No,
all
yeah.
right, yeah, hey, Coach Dubuque still got it, or something like that.
Right.
For him, again, like, like just from an accomplishment standpoint, he was a one-time All-American. But I mean, when he was right out of college, he was still at the World Team Trials, at a very difficult weight. So I think he almost got better with age, and and then again, there was a time where now when he took over the program, as a head coach, then he starts to put his focus more on, hey, the total program, than rather like, being in there and wrestling every single practice. I will say when I first got there, I was 30 and I think he was 39 at the time. And one of his main pitches was, hey, Joe, I want you to help run the room with me and Sean because I still want to wrestle. And I said, that's awesome. Like you're 39 years old, like you're the head coach, you've been the head coach for a while and you're still rolling and you're still scrapping and it's awesome. And I think again, it does when you're in the trenches with your guys and you're sweating and you're bleeding with them, literally going through the same workout as you are, there definitely becomes a level of respect and saying like, yeah, this guy isn't just telling me what to do. He's actually doing it. He's going through it. I just, from a kid standpoint, he's like, man, I just punched this old man for 10 minutes, in a live go and he's still ticking. Yeah, that's it, and these guys are probably talking about me like that, like Dubuque, he's still going through a 10, 15 minute go and, he's old and whatever. And I'm like, hey, I don't expect you to do anything I wouldn't do or I didn't do. So that's kind of, I think, where that comes from. But for him, yeah, I think his work ethic was the thing I think that set him apart. And, but then when he got to the head coaching job, he talk about CEO and thinking outside of the box about things. Like, again, I don't think, and there's a reason why he's the new head coach at Stanford is because of what he's done for this program.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting you mentioned that line of demarcation about assistant versus head coach, because when my dad was the head coach and I was coaching with him, I wrestled with the guys every day. And one of the guys comes up to me one day, like we're on the bus, and he goes, Coach. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, you were actually really good. I go, okay. And he goes, well, we Googled you because it's a long, if this one, the internet went, he goes, we Googled you. We're like, who the hell is this guy kicking our tails every day? He goes, you should have told us.
That's probably when it was Wikipedia. They probably looked up your Wikipedia page.
There was a scroll somewhere and a tablet. That's how old I am. Like, somebody chiseled in, not bad.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I find that stuff super interesting to me, because it is a kind of a culture thing. So, all right. So you and Sean were the two, Sean Gray, assistant coach, and you got the job. Sean stays on staff. So obviously you have a position to fill now, correct? Or has it been filled?
Yeah. No, it hasn't.
So you will be adding someone.
Yeah. I think, I think we're the job is still posted right now. So I'm kind of still waiting on just seeing who comes in, seeing who's interested. There's definitely some priorities just in regards to like, we kind of need an upper weight coach. I think that's definitely something that I'm looking for. A guy who again is still rolling on the mat and can work out with these guys. I think that's something that's important to us. So, I'll try. I guess I'll try to fill it right now. But if I don't find somebody that I feel like can fill that void, I think right now with me, Sean, and Quincy, like I think we can probably get to the spring where. Again, I know timing is not the best thing right now.
Yeah.
Not many guys are willing to kind of pack up and move like literally halfway through preseason and jump on a new job. So again, if I do find somebody that really like, I'm like, man, we need to have him. Like, I'll hire him. But if not, I'm not in a rush. I don't think I think right now we're good with all hands on deck. And if we have to, we'll open it back up in the spring.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? Because like you said, supply and demand. We know the coaching carousel starts, the Monday after the NCAAs. The more you know about people that are available, if people know this job is available, it also gives you time to build relationships and be like, hey, when we've decided, like, say it's November, like at this point, we're just going to wait till the spring to fill it. Then you can have those conversations. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I assume you're going to hire somebody you'd like to have for a while. It's not like I need to fill somebody and then do this in a year. So you want to get the right fit, right?
Yeah.
So tell me, we mentioned putting a little Joey D sauce on it. What parts of the culture will stay the same or close to the same? And how do you think you will change anything?
The culture that will stay the same is, I think, the way that we approach, and maybe this isn't culture, maybe this is just, again, how we ran the program. But the organization of the program is going to stay the same. I thought we did a really good job of communicating with our athletes on a week-to-week, day-to-day basis. So we are definitely going to keep that. Valuing relationships. I think, that's what Chris talked about a lot was, this is a partnership, not a dictatorship. And I was fully on board with that. I think that's something that's actually true to myself. I build relationships with kids, and that's what, that's why I can get the most out of my athletes is that, they understand or they see how much I invest in them, and they're going to invest right back. So that's going to now, instead of that being, 7 or 8 guys that I was just, wrestling with, now it's going to be 32 guys. And I feel like I can absolutely do that. I have enough bandwidth. I could do that. And I'm passionate about it. Anything I'm passionate about, I'm going to do it. Things that I'm going to, I guess, not really change, but maybe put more emphasis on is, just valuing each other. I think that's something that's, I always made that a point to, whether it was when I was an athlete and telling my workout partner who never got a chance to step on the mat because he was behind me on how important he was to my success, and telling the guys, again, who aren't always in the spotlight, sharing with them how valuable they are and how much I value them. That's going to happen in my program. And I talked to that, or I told that to our leaders and said, like, there's a time to be selfish, and there's a time to where you have to look around and you have to tell somebody how they, how much they mean to you, and how great that would be for them to hear that. So it's like, don't always be thinking about yourself all the time. Think about your teammates, think about the other people in this program, again, that don't get the opportunity to put on the orange and black singlet and represent us in Jadwin. So I think that's something that we're going to put a high emphasis on. And then also the energy, I'm big on that. We are going to bring energy to every practice, every competition. We're going to focus on our brand of wrestling. It's going to be scrappy. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be unique. We're not going to be robots. Every kid's probably going to wrestle differently, but as a whole, I want our opponents to, basically not want to wrestle us anymore, and I want, win or lose, I want coaches to come over to my guys and tell them, man, you guys are tough. You're tough. You wrestle hard. You're exciting, like, even though we got you, you're tough. And that's what we want, because if we're doing that, we're putting ourselves in positions to win big matches. And that's what we want to do. So yeah, I'm going to be spicy. Hopefully I'll have somebody be able to keep me off the mat. That's probably going to go into my hiring, philosophy. I need somebody to be maybe a little bit calmer than me. That might be big on the resume.
Yeah, it's a fine line, right? Like, I know in junior college, our first tournament was always the Lindenwood Open. And I guess I can tell this story now. I would always, 2/3 of the way through the tournament, there was a referee I was friends with, and I would wait till there was anything remotely controversial. and I would go over and start an argument and ask him just to warn me, just so that the kids knew I would fight for them. Because
That's good.
we don't have the guys. We didn't have them as long. Most of the time was 2 years. If you were great 1 year, and so it's like you guys, the guys that have been around you for 3-4 years, they know, hey, coach is going to fight for us. Coach Joe, Coach Sean are going to fight for us. But if you've been there 15 minutes and it's a bad call and the coach just sits there, and we also told them if you're winning by 9 or losing by 9, we weren't fighting. Like the fight has to matter, because you can only have so many of those arguments before you're the guy that cried wolf. But it's interesting. So I do follow, I don't know if it's you or Princeton on social, but I see these videos and you guys are throwing people into walls and everything else. So it feels like you got the intensity part figured out. Has preseason, I guess we'll call it preseason, it says fall workouts. And there was a lot of stuff going on there, like you mentioned. So talk about, you mentioned something off air, like the week that you got the job. Kind of talk about that, like kind of, I don't want to say craziness, but just stuff that happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I was announced as the head coach on Tuesday. We had one of our biggest recruiting weekend coming up, both in size and the caliber of wrestlers that were going to be on campus. So I knew, there's a sense of urgency, obviously, to put on a great weekend and really showcase everything that we're going to be about. And for me, again, I only had 3 days. I had 3 days to get ready for it. And there was things that Chris had specific responsibilities that he handled for official visits, and there was things that I handled as the assistant coach, for official visits. So for me now, I'm now doing 2 jobs, right? So I was trying to, figure out the presentations that we were going to, give to the recruits, and then also make sure that all the actual, itineraries and the day-to-day and times and everything like that was set up. So it was stressful. I was 100%. I was stressed out, and it's funny. I kept bugging Chris. I was like, Chris, you got to send me this, man. You're the one who did these presentations. I need them so I can, change them a little bit. And he's like, give me a day. I'm drowning over here too. So we were, it was funny, but he, obviously he wound up taking care of me and sending it to me, and it all worked out. And I think we had a great weekend. Again, it was stressful. It was my first recruiting weekend as the head coach. And I kind of told, before I gave the presentation to these kids, I said, hey, full disclosure, this is my first presentation. So I have a suggestion box over here. All right. So afterwards, just let me know what I could do better. And so, they got a good chuckle out of that. But yeah, I mean, the great thing about Chris was that he gave me and Sean so much freedom to do so many things within the program. So I'm fully confident and prepared to take this program to the next level because of that freedom. Because I am confident in all the responsibilities that need to be handled, from the head coach. So again, that's, was stressful, but I'm good now. I'm ready to rock and roll, baby.
Yeah. Well, if it gets real stressful, I'll give you my mom's number. She teaches public speaking and she's an OG at it. I'm always, when I send my mom podcast, I'm way more worried about whether my mom approves the podcast than my dad, because my dad just likes the wrestling part of it. My mom's like, you asked a closed-ended question, you didn't give the person time to elaborate, so and I think what you said about errors, and again, you can hear it. It's like my dad did this with me. And I think a lot of great head coaches do this. They take somebody who's really good in a window, right? Like, I'm sure when you got there, you were good at certain things, obviously great at wrestling, and probably good at some other stuff. I'm sure enthusiasm, I'm sure leadership, I'm sure intensity, I'm sure putting your arm around a guy, I'm sure knowing which guys to go out to dinner with. But maybe you weren't the best fundraiser, or maybe you weren't the most organized recruiter. And I'm not saying you weren't, I'm just saying maybe something like that. And they let you run where you're successful, and then they slowly feed you the other stuff so you can be successful at all of it. So, and like I saw you at Fargo and you were still still the associate head coach. And for people that haven't been to Fargo, it's 100 2-minute conversations. People need to understand that it's like a wedding, but not as expensive. People aren't dressed.
Well, actually, maybe a little. It's pretty expensive to get out there now.
yeah, fair. But it's like some kids are in the finals. I'm like, you're recruiting those. You're like, already, dog, like already on it. If you're not in it now, it's too late. Like by the time those guys get on that big platform. So I'm interested in this because I always enjoyed the recruiting game, and some people don't like it. I mean, you deal with a certain amount of rejection. You deal with a certain amount of frustration because not everybody says yes. But I enjoyed it. Like I enjoyed the challenge of it. I enjoyed getting to meet the kids and the moms and the dads and the brothers and the sisters and all those other things. Do you think you will be as heavily involved in recruiting, especially on the front end, or do you feel like, hey, that's something I'm going to have to delegate and be more of the back end closer kind of guy?
I think it's definitely a shared responsibility. I think I definitely have to be involved in both. I have to be involved on the front end and also the back end, just because for me, again, I'm very relationship, heavy, right? Like I think that's something that I put a lot of stock into, and so I need to build a relationship with a kid, and if that's over some telephone calls, or even just text messages of like trying to get the kid's humor and figure out kind of what makes him tick. That's something that's important to me. So I enjoy it. I enjoy recruiting just like you. I enjoy the challenge. I want to show this kid everything that everything that Princeton can offer him. And really, again, show him what his future could be like coming to a place like Princeton. So yeah, I mean, I'm going to be heavily involved. Recruiting is the lifeblood, right? I mean, if you don't get the right guys and the hammers in your program, like you're probably not there's going to be a ceiling that you can, that you'll only be able to attain, certain amount of success. So yeah, that's definitely important. And I'm going to be, I'm going to have my fingerprints all over the recruiting process.
Yeah. It's such an honest answer, right? Because like, I know so many coaches that take credits for all their kids in the finals, but then somehow they're not responsible for all the kids that went 0-2. And it's like, you were their coach too, right? Like, I mean, they all belong to your team, your club, whatever. And at the end of the day, you can teach stuff. I mean, I remember like for years, my dad just kind of had local kids, and then I went recruiting nationally, and you were a part of that. Like, you ask guys like, hey, how do you recruit? Like, you talk to people in the game that you respect how good they are at it, and then you go from there. And recruiting could not be overrated enough. Like if you just have a room full of Fargo and I used to say state champs, but now but if you have a room of number ones, they're probably going to figure it out how to be pretty good. I mean, you need somebody to blow the whistle and make sure they don't kill each other. But if you said all recruiting, no coaching versus all coaching and coaching a bunch of kids that are terrible, I'll take the all recruiting team every day of the week, because and some kids are just blessed. Some human beings are blessed with skill and talent and feel. I'm not saying they haven't worked hard, but it comes to them more naturally. And you got to get some of those kids. Like I look at a Pat Glory from the outside, and obviously national champion. He didn't look overly blessed to me. Like he didn't look like he just did a bunch of stuff naturally well. But he's obviously bright if he got into Princeton. Okay. He was obviously coachable. You could see the relationship he had with you and the staff, but especially with you, because I know you wrestled with him a ton, was absolutely impossible to miss. But I'm sure there's some things that you just showed him one time and he picked it up. There's other things, like, and people that or like, hey, he's got unbelievable grip strength, or he's got perfect feel with his hips, or his head position is just uncanny. Like you got to get some guys that are just, because you can't teach them everything. There's got to be some guys that are just good at stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, pointing to Pat, the best guys always have something, that one thing that is just different, right? Like, and I think for him, like his mental toughness and his competitiveness was really what set him apart. Like that dude loved to compete. There's a lot of guys, who knows? There's probably a lot of guys who worked harder than him. I mean, he was a hard worker. I'm not saying he wasn't, but there was probably guys at the 125-pound weight class that probably worked harder than him, but put him on the mat and say, hey, you're gonna wear a singlet and we're gonna time you 7 minutes and we're gonna see how many points you can score. That dude, like that's what he lived for, right? He lived for that.
Yeah, he's a singlet guy, not a t-shirt guy. I say that to people,
Yeah.
and like people instantly know what that means.
Yes.
Yeah. Certain guys are t-shirt guys, certain guys are bright light guys, and other guys are not. And you can try to coach them up, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. And I mean, coaching is certainly important. I don't mean like my dad's, I think, genius to me as a coach. He coached guys that were terrible and turned them into All-Americans. But like, man, it's a lot easier. Like the better clay you get, the better pots you're going to make. So this question, I've asked a lot of coaches this on and off the air. I think your perspective is a little different because of where you're at. What is your view on NIL? And I'll give you my quick one. I'm a capitalist, and I feel like a lot of wrestling people are capitalists when they want to be, and they're socialists when they want to be. Like when it comes to football, we're all socialists. Well, they need to share. And then if there's a sport that makes less money than us, we want to be, well, no, we're keeping our money. And to me, that's just a big hypocrisy. I think kids should, like I can only imagine how much you would have probably had a hair commercial and a bunch of other stuff back in the day. Like for sure. Like you'd have been a Head and Shoulders guy or something. I got to imagine.
Yeah, definitely.
I would not have. But just, what's your perception on it in general?
I think when it was first discussed and first created, it was created for all the right reasons, right? And now it's being exploited just like everything, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you find they're just like new rules in wrestling, right? I mean, there's a new rule, the coaches will find a little loophole or a way to exploit it to kind of, turn it in their favor. I think, the way that I approach it is that, again, I can't discuss, NIL opportunities or deals specifically. Like I can't, offer you a $20,000 NIL deal with whoever. But what I can say is that, there are opportunities that are at Princeton, both, through the athletics department in regards to like there's a website that you can, put your information on and Princeton alumni can go on there and literally just, pay you for an autograph, pay you for an appearance or a speech or whatever. And then there's other opportunities, obviously, like if you do well, there are organizations that are around Princeton. There's alumni who own businesses that want to support Princeton wrestlers. So like I could just talk about, hey, that's what's happened in the past. And if you come here and you do well, I promise you, you're going to have those opportunities. But I also talk about like, hey, everybody's, there's a lot of people who are, getting 4-year NIL deals worth, 6 figures. And I said, hey, that's obviously that's crazy and that's awesome, whatever. But I'm also dealing with a 30 and 40-year NIL deal. You know what I mean? The Princeton degree, there's nothing that's going to carry you like that, right? So whatever that NIL deal, that'll cover you over 4 years or 5 years or whatever it is. But what happens after that? What happens after you're done wrestling? Is the NILs going to continue? No, they're not, because you're not competing for that anymore. So for us, it's like, hey, yeah, we're probably never going to, have guys getting 6 figures. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe not. But I think what our alumni also look at is that the opportunities that the Princeton degree offers is way more valuable than, a 4 or 5 year deal that ends after graduation, where ours, it begins. So that's kind of my stance on it. And, I try and do things the right way. Those are the conversations I'm having with recruits, is that I'm not, going to discuss NIL numbers or deals or anything like that, because I'm not allowed. But I will say that there's definitely opportunities here that guys have taken advantage of.
Well, I'll say this. If you graduated from Princeton, you're probably not poor. Okay. If you just start with that premise, okay, like I graduated from Washington University here in St. Louis, which is one of the best business schools in the country. And people assume if you went there, you're smart. There's a ton of networking opportunities. The degree certainly means a lot. The networking, I think, might be 51% because it comes with the degree. Like, okay, so now like I know Pat Glory's got a job on Wall Street, okay? And I'm sure Pat Glory is a really smart kid. I'm sure he's a really nice young man. I shouldn't call him a kid. I'm sure he can drive legally and everything else, but I'm sure he's a nice young man. Okay, well, I don't mean that in any way. Don't send glory to St. Louis. I'm not. I don't want that smoke. Okay, I'm sure he's a great young man, but if he graduated online, just he would probably not have the same doors open for him. And part of it too was he was a wrestler and a national champion, and people know, if you work half as hard in life as you did at wrestling, you're probably going to be good at your job. Like that's always a thing, because like people that don't understand wrestling know it's freaking hard. Those guys, they work out hard, they get beat up a lot, they beat other people up a lot. So I also think I think it's interesting that you would know, you'd have your finger on the pulse better than me on what can be offered at Princeton and what's like reasonably available. But you guys probably have as many rich alumni as anybody in the world. So if somebody really wanted to get a kid on any sport in any team there, like if they wanted to go get the number one quarterback in the country who could academically get in there, the resources are there to make it happen. I mean, I think that goes without saying. So I want to talk to you about the college rules. Okay. So like you mentioned, exploiting the NIL rules. So, I think the major rule is 3-point takedown, right? Like, how does that change the game? It feels like it's obviously more towards freestyle now, because, before, if person A, if you take me down and I get a reversal, it's 2-2. Now it's 3-2, and, again, like if you coach on like a Glory and he can get one takedown, it's even harder now, because, generally guys shouldn't pick down against him, and it changed the whole game even more. So, now that extra bonus is even more prevalent or increasing his percentage of victory, I guess. So what are your thoughts on the new rules?
So the 3-point takedown, I'm actually, just watching more matches that are, actually really high school matches, right? Like, who's number one, introducing the 3-point takedown. Elite 8 had the 3-point takedown. And the thing I liked about it is that it actually makes comebacks in the third period more realistic. I was watching a match and it was like maybe 9-3 or something like that going into the third period. And, again, the kid gets an escape and a takedown, and boom, he's right back in it. Right.
It's
and I think
9-7,
it's like he's right back in it. So I do like that. What I don't like is, again, and maybe the committee will get angry at me for this, but I think it's just disingenuous to say that, adding one more point to the takedown is going to, add, more eyeballs to wrestling or grow the sport or anything like that. I'm just so tired of that. And I don't think it's accurate, right? Like, I just don't like a kid to say that, say to a kid who's not very good on his feet and is really a top bottom guy, to say like, hey, we're gonna add one more point to a takedown. Then he's gonna be like, oh man, I'm gonna really work on my neutral and so I can get takedowns. No, he's just gonna be like, if I get a takedown, it's one more point now. It's like mine doesn't change. Now, what I would have liked, and I was actually talking to Chris Bono at Wisconsin because I think he was on the committee too, and I was, we were just chatting about it, what I thought, and he goes, and we were talking, and he's like, yeah, you know what? Like now that you say that, like would have made sense to say, hey, the first takedown in a match is 3 points, and everything else is 2, right? Because then now you actually from the jump you're incentivizing aggression, right? To be aggressive, right? To go after that first takedown, right? And that's what we want. We don't want 3 minutes of guys standing around and ending 0-0.
In that proposal, is it the first takedown period or the first takedown for each guy?
No, first takedown. That's it. First takedown.
Okay.
Points. You know what I mean?
So so then the comeback part of it, which you said earlier, now isn't as prevalent, right?
But again, their whole point, or again, like I wasn't on the committee, I wasn't in any of the conferences, but all the literature that I saw coming from that and the quotes and everything was to, I guess, incentivize, aggressive wrestling, right? That's what we want. Going out there and trying to put up points and things like that. Where again, I don't think that's going to really incentivize anybody anymore. You know what I mean? They're just gonna be like, okay, it's 3 points. Where if the whole point is like, having people be aggressive from the opening whistle, then that could have done it. You know what I mean? Or, like, again, I'm just spitballing, and I was talking again to Bono about it. And that if that was the point of, again, getting people more aggressive from the jump, then I think that might have helped. But who knows? I mean, again, I'm not against it. I just thought it wasn't. I kind of roll my eyes when people like talk about the rules and how it's going to promote, and grow the sport and stuff like that. Like we're a sport that people love the sport. You know what I mean? Like we'll complain about things and stuff like that, but it's not changing the love of it. And, again, adding one more point to a takedown is not going to, again, gain the interest of 10,000 more kids just because of that. But again, I think
go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, but, watching more matches, again, I feel a little bit better about it than I did, before there was any wrestling and before the rules were actually, put into play. I do like that third period. Yeah, it does give that guy who might be down, a few to be able to come back and make that comeback realistic.
I'll tell you where they could grow the sport, and this could be an entirely different podcast, and maybe I'd get a bunch of you guys as guests, but
hey, remember, my Giants are on, all right? So you can't be keeping me on here for 2 hours.
I'm watching right now.
Don't tell me the score. Don't tell me the score.
All right, we'll be done by the end of the first quarter, I promise. It was your choice to go at night. You're so busy now.
I forgot the game was on.
Okay, I did not, for the record, I did not schedule this during the Giants-Seahawks game. You did.
Well, hey, just this should show you how important you are to me, okay?
I feel special, Joe. I'm your favorite podcaster. So
yeah.
But if they wanted to clean it up, they need to run little league tournaments where you're not there all day. Like run certain weight classes, get them in, get them out, 3 hours. Because like people are doing that, like going to soccer games. Like there's people that don't want to go spend, like if the tournament starts at 9, you got to be there at 7:30 for weigh-ins and you leave at 9. People are like, I'm not doing this sport. Like if they would go, just do it in flights. Yeah.
And the thing is like, hey, the kids don't need, right? Especially younger kids. Younger kids do not need, an hour and a half to recover, right? They can wrestle, literally, they can wrestle 3 matches in an hour and a half and be totally fine and love it and be great and whatever. And then you're out of there. Right. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah. So I think that's something for them to, and it's funny because I'm associated with USA Wrestling, people call or text me and tell me these suggestions. Like I'm somehow just going to wave my podcast wand and that's going to change. I ain't on that level, dude.
Change the sport, Dave. Change it.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that is something they really should consider because I think that would make a big difference. So,
I agree.
all right. I don't want to take much more of your time. The game has 2 minutes left in the first quarter. I'll just tell you that. I'm not going to tell you anything else. Okay. You're my friend. You specifically said don't do this, so I won't. Okay. So I was going to tease and say go Hawks, but I'm not going to do that either. So
Don't do that.
Don't do that. So any last words, like any last people you want to thank, you want to just get the word out, anything else before I let you get out of here?
Yeah, I mean, again, I just want to thank the alumni and, the people who believed in me and saw the work that I put in over the 10 years. I really hope, and I think they do believe that, I love this program and I'm going to do everything in the best interest of the program moving forward. So the work doesn't stop. I'm actually even more motivated and more passionate about, what I want to do and what I want to do for this program. So, again, it's going to be an exciting time. Again, like with what Chris has done, obviously we're forever grateful. But just like anything, he's moving on and we have to move on too. So, it's going to be different, right? Like, just like anything, there's some things that are going to be the same and some things are going to be different. But in the end, I'm going to definitely put my spin on it and, I'm going to enjoy doing it.
Well, you've been one of the real friends to me as I got started in this part of my career. And I think we just basically met at Virginia Beach and I just started bugging you about, hey, anybody who's in Indiana that's not going to make grades, I want to know about, because there was no colleges in Indiana. And, but you were, I think if I pestered you long enough that we became friends. So, but I really do appreciate it. And, I don't root against anybody. Okay. Like when these jobs come open, it's more like being able to comment or talk intelligently on that. But I was genuinely happy for you when you got the job. I texted you, wish you luck when it happened. And then when you got it, and you're one of those guys you don't have to talk to every 6 months to know that, that person's still your friend and they still got you. And, all joking aside, I knew you wouldn't big time me. I knew you'd come on no matter, you could, be the president of the university and you're still going to squeeze me in. So I really appreciate it. I know you'll do great and I'm excited for you. You paid your dues, man. So, you get the right to, like you said, put your own Joey D spin on things. And I know Princeton is way better than it was, say, 10 years ago. And I think Stanford will get better. Shout out to Coach Ayers. I'm sure he'll keep that program on the climb, but I know you'll make Princeton better too. So just congratulations, buddy.
Yeah, Dave, I really do appreciate our friendship. Again, we've gone back a long, long time, and you always make time for me, even when I was in the assistant coach role to come on and talk to you about, the program and just things that are in my career. So I really appreciate your support, and, I always have time for my boys. So remember that. But thank you very much. And, I look forward to talking to you, down the line, again.
Our guy Jimmy Rollins is back out there now too. You know that, right?
He's actually he's taken over a program of one of our guys, Clearview High School. So yeah. I gotta touch base with him. So he's like right down the road from me. So back in South Jersey.
That boy. All right. Well, I'll let you get to the football game. For Joe Dubuque, I'm David Mirikitani. Thank you for watching and listening. We'll speak to y'all next week.